What if some of the world's most fascinating places were hiding disturbing secrets? From abandoned islands, to forests people are too afraid to enter, to hotels where guests check in, but never truly leave, these are real locations with histories so dark, they feel like pure fiction. And today we're counting down from number 12 to number 1. Trust me. By the end of this video, you won't just be surprised, you'll be shocked. The Stanley Hotel. There are some places that don't feel empty, even when they are. The Stanley Hotel is one of them. Sitting quietly in the mountains of Colorado, it looks peaceful from the outside. Large white walls, wide windows, perfect, almost cinematic setting. But the moment you step inside, something changes. The silence here feels different. Not calm, not relaxing, but heavy, like the building itself is holding onto something. Guests who stay here often say the same thing. They don't feel alone, and it usually starts small. A faint sound in the hallway, footsteps that stop when you listen closely, a door that creaks open just a little, even though no one is there. First, it's easy to ignore. You tell yourself it's just an old building. Wood expands, floors settle, wind moves through the halls. But then, it continues, night after night. More sounds, more movement, and eventually, you stop trying to explain it. Room 217 is where things get more intense. This room has become the center of countless stories. Guests report lights turning on and off on their own, objects moving slightly, just enough to notice, and sometimes the feeling that someone is standing very close, watching, not threatening, not aggressive, just there. One guest described waking up suddenly in the middle of the night with the clear sensation that someone was sitting at the edge of the bed. They couldn't see anyone, but they could feel the weight, the presence, and the moment they moved, it was gone. No sound, no trace, just silence again. But not the same kind of silence as before. Even staff members have their own experiences. Housekeepers have reported items being moved after they've already cleaned a room, lights switching on, in rooms that are supposed to be empty, and sometimes hearing children laughing, late at night, when there are no children checked into the hotel. That's what makes this place different. It's not just one story, it's not just one person, it's a pattern. The same types of experiences, repeated by people who have never met. And then there's one name that changed everything. Stephen King. Before this hotel became widely known, he stayed here just one night, but that night was enough. He later described walking through the empty halls, feeling completely alone, yet not. The quiet was overwhelming, the atmosphere unsettling, and that experience became the foundation for one of the most famous horror stories ever created. The Shining, a story about isolation, about presence, about a place that slowly affects the people inside it. But here's what makes it more unsettling. This isn't fiction. The Stanley Hotel is still open. People still book rooms. They still walk these same hallways, sleep in these same beds, and every now and then, they leave with a story, a small detail they can't explain, a moment that didn't make sense, something they felt but couldn't see, and that's what stays with them, because fear isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's quiet, subtle, and patient, just like this place. Alcatraz Island. In the middle of the cold, dark waters of San Francisco Bay, there is an island, isolated, silent, unforgiving, Alcatraz. At first, it was just a prison, but over time, it became something else, something heavier, something that didn't leave, even after the prisoners did. This place was designed to break people, not physically, but mentally. Small cells, bare walls, endless routine, day after day, year after year, until time itself started to feel meaningless. The prisoners sent here were not ordinary criminals. They were considered the most dangerous, the ones no other prison could control. And yet, Even they struggled with something far worse than confinement, the silence. Because in Alcatraz, silence was never truly silent, especially at night. When the lights went out and the corridors emptied, that's when things changed. Guards reported hearing sounds echoing through the cell blocks. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving through empty hallways. Metal doors clanging shut when no one was near them. And sometimes, voices, not loud, not clear, just whispers, as if conversations were still happening, long after everyone had left. Cell Block D was the most feared section of the prison. This was solitary confinement. No light, no contact, no sound. Or at least, that's how it was supposed to be. Prisoners who were locked inside these cells often came out different. Some refused to speak. Others couldn't stop talking. One prisoner claimed that during his time in isolation, he wasn't alone. He said something was inside the cell with him, not visible, but present. He described glowing eyes in the darkness, a figure that stayed just out of sight, but close enough to feel. The guards ignored him. They thought it was fear, stress, isolation. Until the next morning, when they found him dead in his cell. No clear cause, no signs of struggle, but his face, frozen in absolute terror. After that, even the guards avoided Cell Block D at night. But the stories didn't stop. Over the years, more strange experiences were reported. Cold spots, in areas that should have been warm. Sudden drops in temperature that lasted only seconds. The feeling of being watched, even when standing completely alone. And then there were the sounds. Always the sounds. Some visitors today say they hear things during tours. A distant scream, a door slamming shut, or footsteps, walking just behind them, matching their pace, until they turn around, and no one is there. What makes Alcatraz different is that its history is real. This isn't legend. This isn't myth. People lived here, suffered here, lost themselves here, and maybe some part of that never left. Today, it's a tourist site. Boats arrive every day. People walk through the same corridors, look inside the same cells, take pictures, listen to guides, and then they leave. But not everyone leaves the same way. Some carry a strange feeling with them, a memory that doesn't quite make sense, a moment that felt off. Because places like Alcatraz don't just disappear when they're abandoned. They stay, they settle, they remember, and sometimes they remind you that you were never really alone there. Area 51. In the middle of the Nevada desert, far away from cities, far away from attention, there is a place that officially barely exists. Area 51. No signs on the highway pointing toward it. No public access. No clear explanation. Just miles of empty land. And then suddenly, warning signs. Restricted area. No trespassing. Use of deadly force authorized. And that's where things begin to feel different. Because most secret locations try to stay hidden quietly. This one doesn't. It wants you to know you're not supposed to be there. The road leading toward Area 51 looks ordinary at first. Flat desert, endless horizon. But the closer you get, the more you notice small changes. Unmarked vehicles, parked in the distance. Cameras watching from places you can't clearly see. And sometimes, white trucks appear out of nowhere. No logos, no identification, just watching. People who have tried to get closer say the response is immediate. Before you even realize it, you're being observed. Not approached, not warned politely, just tracked. And if you go any further, you're stopped. No questions, no conversation, just a clear message. Turn back. For decades, this place has been surrounded by rumors. Not small ones, not simple ones. The kind of stories that don't go away, no matter how many times they're denied. People have claimed that unidentified flying objects were brought here. That recovered technology, not made by humans, is being studied behind those fences. Some believe experimental aircraft are tested here. Technology so advanced, it looks impossible. But here's what makes Area 51 truly unsettling. It's not just the theories, it's the secrecy, because the government didn't even officially acknowledge its existence for years. Think about that. An entire facility, hidden in plain sight, denied, until it couldn't be denied anymore. And even now, very little is explained. No detailed information, no full transparency, just enough confirmation to say, yes, it exists, but nothing more. That gap between what is confirmed and what is hidden, that's where the mystery lives. Satellite images show runways, massive structures, hangars built in the middle of nowhere. But what happens inside them? No one outside truly knows. And the people who do, don't talk. Some former workers have come forward over the years, sharing small pieces of information, hints, fragments, but never the full picture. And sometimes, their stories only raise more questions, because they describe things that don't sound normal. Technology that doesn't behave like anything we understand. Objects that move in ways that don't follow known physics. And systems that feel far ahead of their time. But again, no proof, no confirmation, just stories that refuse to disappear. At night, the desert around Area 51 becomes even more unsettling. The sky is clear, open, endless, and sometimes lights are seen moving above it. Fast, silent, unpredictable, too fast to track, too precise to ignore. Some say they're military tests, others say there's something else. But no matter what you believe, one thing remains certain. Whatever is happening inside Area 51 is important enough to be protected at all costs, not just hidden, guarded, watched, controlled, because this isn't a place from the past. It's not abandoned. It's not forgotten. It's active, right now. And that's what makes it different from every other place on this list. Because somewhere in that empty desert, behind fences you can't cross, something is happening, something real, something ongoing, and whatever it is, you're not meant to see it. Skinwalker Ranch. This isn't just one mystery, there's dozens happening in the same place. People who have visited Skinwalker Ranch describe things that don't connect logically. Lights in the sky, moving in impossible patterns, creatures that don't match any known animal, shadows that move on their own. But the strangest part? These events don't follow rules. They don't happen on a schedule. They appear, then disappear, like something is choosing when to be seen. Some witnesses claim to have seen large figures watching them from a distance. Others say they heard voices, calling their names, when no one was there. Equipment fails here. Cameras stop working. Signals disappear. It's as if the place itself doesn't want to be recorded. Scientists have tried to study it. Investigations have been done. But no clear answers have ever come out of it. Because whatever is happening here doesn't behave like anything we understand. Hoia Forest. There is a forest in Romania where people don't just feel lost, they feel watched. Hoia Forest. From the outside, it looks like any other woodland. Tall trees, thick paths, quiet air. But the moment you step inside, something feels off. Not dangerous, not immediately, just wrong. Many visitors say the same thing, an unexplainable anxiety, a sudden heaviness in the chest, as if the forest itself is reacting to your presence. And then, the small things begin. You hear footsteps behind you, but when you turn around, nothing is there. Branches move, even when there is no wind. And the deeper you go, the quieter it gets. Too quiet. No birds, no insects, just silence that feels unnatural. But Hoia is not just known for feelings. It's known for what people have seen. Strange lights, floating between the trees, glowing orbs, appearing suddenly, then disappearing just as fast. Some witnesses say these lights move with purpose, almost like they are aware of being watched. Others have reported shadowy figures, tall, undefined, standing at a distance, just beyond clear vision, never approaching, never leaving, just observing. And then there's the most mysterious part of the forest, a circular clearing, an area where nothing grows, no trees, no plants, just bare land in the middle of dense forest. Scientists have tested the soil here. Everything appears normal, no toxins, no clear explanation, and yet nothing survives in that space. People who step into the clearing report strange effects, dizziness, nausea, a sudden feeling of disorientation. Some even claim to lose track of time. Minutes feel like seconds, or hours feel like minutes, and when they leave, they can't fully remember. Hashima Island. Off the coast of Japan, in the middle of the sea, there is an island that looks like a broken city. Empty buildings, collapsed walls, silent streets, no movement, no life, just concrete, slowly being taken back by nature. This is Hashima Island. But it didn't start like this. A century ago, this place was completely different. It was one of the most densely populated places on Earth. People lived here in thousands. Families, workers, children. Buildings were stacked tightly together, as if space itself was running out. At its peak, Hashima was a symbol of industrial power, a floating city built for coal mining. Everything people needed was here: schools, apartments, shops, even entertainment spaces. But beneath that progress, there was another reality. The work here was extremely harsh. Deep underground coal mines, long hours, dangerous conditions. And during wartime, the island's history became even darker. Forced labor was used here. People brought against their will, made to work in extreme environments. Many did not survive the conditions, and even those who did carried the memory with them. Then suddenly, everything changed. When coal lost its value, the mines closed, and people began to leave, slowly at first, then all at once, until one day, the island was completely abandoned. No evacuation plan, no farewell ceremony, just silence. Since then, Hashima Island has remained frozen in time. Buildings still stand, but they are decaying. Balconies are collapsing. Walls are cracking. Staircases lead nowhere. Nature is slowly reclaiming everything. Wind moves through empty hallways, like voices from the past. Visitors who come here often describe a strange feeling. Not fear exactly, but heaviness, as if the island remembers. Some say they hear faint echoes, distant sounds, of a place that once lived here. Footsteps in empty corridors, metal doors shifting slightly in the wind, but others say it's quieter than that. Too quiet, a silence that feels unnatural for a place that was once full of life. Even birds seem rare here. The air feels still, stagnant, unchanging, and the deeper you walk into the abandoned buildings, the more you notice details. Personal items left behind, old machinery rusting in place, walls marked with time, and nothing else. Feels less like a ruin and more like a moment that stopped continuing. That's what makes Hashima Island different. It's not just abandoned, it's preserved abandonment. A place where time didn't just pass, it froze and left everything exactly as it was, right before the people disappeared. Today, the island is mostly closed to the public. Only controlled visits are allowed, because the structures are unstable, but also because there's something about this place that feels unfinished. Like the story of Hashima Island hasn't truly ended. It's just waiting, silent, in the middle of the sea, remembering everything and saying nothing at all. Bangor Fort. There is a place in India where even the government has placed a warning. A fort that people are not allowed to enter after sunset. Bangor Fort. At first glance, it looks like any other ancient structure. Stone walls, broken gates, old temples, ruins stretching across dry land. But the moment you step closer, the atmosphere changes. The air feels heavier, the silence feels unnatural, and everything seems slightly off. Locals believe this is not just an abandoned fort. They believe it is a place that was never meant to be disturbed. According to legend, Bangor was once a thriving city, full of life, markets, homes, and a royal palace at its center. But then came the stories. One version says a powerful sorcerer once lived nearby. He became obsessed with a princess from Bangor, and when he tried to control her using dark magic, he was discovered. Before dying, he cursed the entire city, and shortly after, everything changed. The city began to fall apart. People disappeared, buildings collapsed, and the entire population was lost. No one knows what part of this story is true, but what makes Bangor Fort unsettling is not just the legend, it's the silence. Because even today, nothing truly grows inside certain parts of the ruins. Trees stop at the boundaries, as if something invisible draws a line, and beyond that line, the fort begins. Visitors who enter during the day describe a strange feeling. Not fear immediately, but discomfort, like being watched from multiple directions. Footsteps echo, even when no one is nearby. Voices seem to carry through the empty halls, but no source can be found. Some people report sudden drops in temperature, even in the middle of the afternoon heat. And compasses sometimes behave strangely. But the most important rule here is simple. No one stays after sunset. The gates are officially locked. Because locals believe that once night falls, the fort is no longer empty. Some say they hear music coming from within the ruins. Others claim to see lights moving between the broken walls. And a few have reported hearing footsteps following them, even as they leave. There are also stories of people who ignored the warnings, who stayed too late, or tried to explore at night. And according to local accounts, they never returned the same, or didn't return at all. Whether these stories are fact or fear, no one can confirm, but the reputation of Bangor Fort remains unchanged. Even skeptics admit something feels different there, something hard to explain, because this is not just a ruined fort. It is a place wrapped in story, fear, and silence. And as the sun begins to set over its broken walls, the world outside feels normal again. But inside those ruins, it is as if time itself never fully moved on. Poveglia Island. There is a small island near Venice that most people in Italy avoid even talking about. It looks harmless from a distance, just a patch of land, surrounded by water, slowly decaying under time. But its history is anything but harmless. This is Poveglia Island, and what happened here is why it is often called one of the most disturbing places in Europe. Centuries ago, when plague spread across Venice, Poveglia became something terrifying, a place where the sick were sent and never returned. Boats would arrive full of infected people, and once they reached the island, there was no leaving, no treatment, no recovery, just isolation. Mass graves were dug here, and over time, it's believed that thousands of bodies were buried on this small piece of land. But that was only the beginning, because later, the island was used again, this time as a mental asylum. Patients were brought here from the mainland, people who were already suffering, already unstable, already broken in different ways. And instead of healing, things reportedly became worse. Stories began to spread about harsh treatments inside the asylum, isolation rooms, unusual procedures, and patients claiming they could see things others could not. Some accounts describe screams at night, echoing across the water, so loud that fishermen nearby refused to come close. There are even legends about a doctor who worked on the island, a man obsessed with experiments and unusual methods of treatment. According to rumors, he would conduct disturbing procedures on patients, trying to understand the mind through extreme means. But eventually, the story takes a darker turn. It is said that he became mentally unstable himself, And one day, he climbed the bell tower on the island. No one knows exactly what happened next. Some say he jumped. Others say something made him jump. But what is often repeated is this. He claimed before his death that he was being tormented by the spirits of those who had died on the island. After that incident, the asylum was closed, and Poveglia was abandoned completely. Since then, the island has been left untouched by normal life. No residents, no businesses, no restoration, just ruins slowly being consumed by nature. Trees grow through broken buildings, walls crumble into the sea, and silence fills every corner. People who have visited the island illegally often describe the same feeling, an overwhelming sense of discomfort, not just fear, but pressure, like the air itself feels heavier there. Some report hearing faint sounds, bell ringing, even though the tower is silent, footsteps in empty hallways, or whispers carried by the wind that seem almost intentional. Others say they feel watched from inside the buildings, even when nothing is visible. But what makes Poveglia even more unsettling is how consistently people avoid it. Fishermen refuse to anchor nearby. Locals warn tourists not to go. Even authorities restrict access, not because of modern danger, but because of what the place represents. A history of suffering, layered over centuries, with no real closure. And unlike many haunted places, this one doesn't rely on imagination alone. It is built on real events, real deaths, real isolation, real human tragedy. Today, the island stands untouched. No development, no tourism infrastructure, no life returning to it. Just a place where history didn't fade, it stayed. And over time, people stopped asking what is true and started asking something else instead. Why does no one want to go back? In the heart of Los Angeles, surrounded by busy streets, bright lights, and constant movement, there is a building that looks ordinary at first. A typical downtown hotel. Old, a bit worn down. Nothing unusual from the outside. But behind its doors, the story is very different. This is the Cecil Hotel. And over the decades, it has become one of the most mysterious and controversial buildings in the city. Because this is not a story about one event. It's a story about many, stacked on top of each other, over time. The hotel was built in the 1920s. Back then, it was meant to be a normal place for travelers. But as years passed, things began to change. Reports of strange incidents started appearing. Unexplained deaths, disappearances, and disturbing behavior from some of the people who stayed there. By the mid-20th century, the hotel had already developed a reputation. Not officially, but through stories shared by locals and visitors. Some said it felt unsafe. Others said it felt unpredictable. And then came the darker chapter. Over time, the Cecil became linked to several individuals involved in serious crimes. Some were guests, some were residents. But what made it stand out was how often unusual events seemed to cluster in the same building. Then one case changed everything. A young woman named Elisa Lam checked into the hotel. She was traveling alone, and for a while, nothing seemed unusual. But then she disappeared. Days passed before anyone noticed something was wrong. A search began. Security footage was reviewed, and what was captured became one of the most discussed hotel videos ever recorded. She was seen in an elevator, acting strangely, pressing multiple buttons, stepping in and out, looking down the hallway, as if reacting to something unseen. Then she disappeared from view. After that moment, the mystery only deepened, because despite extensive searches, no immediate explanation was found. Eventually, her body was discovered in a water tank on the roof. The discovery raised even more questions than answers. How she got there, why she went there, and what happened in between remains widely discussed. But what made this case so powerful wasn't only the tragedy. It was the setting. because it added another layer to an already complicated history. After this incident, the Cecil Hotel became globally known, not just as a hotel, but as a symbol of unresolved stories. And even today, the building still exists. Parts of it have been renovated. It has been rebranded at times. Efforts have been made to move forward. But the history remains, because places like this don't lose their past easily. Guests who stay there now often say the hotel feels normal, just another building in a big city. But others still report strange impressions. Uneasy feelings in hallways, sudden discomfort in certain rooms, a sense that the building has layers to it. Not supernatural necessarily, but heavy with memory, because the Cecil Hotel is not defined by one story. It is defined by many, and that's what makes it different. Every floor, every hallway, every room has seen something, some documented, some forgotten, some never fully understood. And even now, in a city that never stops moving, the Cecil Hotel remains still, standing quietly, holding onto its history, whether people acknowledge it or not. In 1959, deep in the cold mountains of Russia, something happened that still has no clear explanation. A group of 9 experienced hikers set out for an expedition. They were not beginners. They were trained. They knew survival. Their goal was simple: reach the mountain pass and return safely, but they never made it back. This place is now known as Dyatlov Pass. At first, nothing seemed unusual. The group was last seen moving through harsh winter conditions. Heavy snow, freezing temperatures, strong winds, normal for that region. But days passed, and communication stopped. No messages, no return. A search team was sent. What they discovered was the beginning of a mystery that still confuses experts today. Their tent was found first, partially buried in snow. But what shocked rescuers was its condition. It was cut open, from the inside, not from outside, as if the people inside had desperately tried to escape, and they didn't take proper clothing. No boots, no jackets, just rushed movement into freezing wilderness. Then the search expanded. One by one, the bodies were found, spread across the snow-covered landscape. Some were near trees, some were far from the campsite, and their conditions raised even more questions. Some showed signs of extreme cold exposure. Others had serious internal injuries, but no external wounds. It didn't match any normal accident pattern. No avalanche fully explained it. No animal attack fit the evidence. No survival scenario made complete sense. One of the most disturbing findings was that some bodies were found barefoot, in temperatures far below freezing, as if they ran, without time to think, and in different directions. This alone suggested panic, but not organized panic. Something sudden, something overwhelming. Over the years, many theories have been proposed. A natural disaster, military testing, atmospheric phenomena, even rare environmental conditions. Pripyat. There are cities that grow slowly, over decades, through generations. And then there is Pripyat, a city that was built, lived in, and abandoned, all within a single human moment. Pripyat wasn't just another town. It was designed for the future, built in 1970 for workers of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Modern, organized, full of life, wide streets, high-rise apartments, parks filled with laughter. Nearly 50,000 people lived here. Teachers, engineers, families, a perfect Soviet city, functioning exactly as planned. Children went to school. People went to work. Evenings were filled with routine. It was normal, until one night, everything changed. April 26, 1986. Inside reactor number 4, the test went wrong. What followed was one of the worst disasters in human history. The Chernobyl disaster, the fire, and something far more dangerous, Radiation. Invisible. Silent. Everywhere. But in Pripyat, no one knew. That morning, people woke up as usual. Children went outside. Families walked the streets. From a distance, some even watched the glowing reactor. Curious, unaware. Hours passed. No alarms. No clear warnings. Life continued, as if nothing had happened. But something deadly was already in the air. Radiation levels rose, far beyond safe limits. Still, the city stayed active. It wasn't until nearly 36 hours later that the truth could no longer be ignored. The order finally came. Evacuation. Immediate. Buses lined the streets. Hundreds of them. Officials told residents, "Take only what you need. You'll be back in a few days." So people believed them. They packed light, documents, a few clothes, nothing more. They left behind their homes, their memories, their lives. Clocks were still ticking. Food was still on tables. Laundry still hung to dry. Children left toys scattered on the floor. And then, they left. In just a few hours, Pripyat became empty. Not slowly, not over time. All at once, a living city turned silent, and it has stayed that way ever since. Days turned into months, months into years, and nature moved in. Trees cracked through concrete. Roads disappeared beneath grass. Buildings began to decay, floor by floor, wall by wall. One of the most haunting places is the amusement park, a bright yellow Ferris wheel, standing still, rust covering its surface, silence surrounding it. It was meant to open just days after the disaster. It never truly did. Today, it stands as a frozen moment, not of joy, but of interruption. Inside the buildings, everything remains. Classrooms, with books still open. Hospitals, with equipment untouched. Apartments, with furniture exactly where it was left. It doesn't feel abandoned. It feels paused, as if time was cut in half. But the most dangerous part of Pripyat can't be seen. Radiation still lingers. Even today, certain areas remain unsafe. Time behaves differently here, not measured by clocks, but by decay and contamination. Metal rusts, walls crumble, but radiation stays. Visitors are allowed now, but only under strict control. Those who walk through the city often describe something unusual. Not fear, not ghosts, but a silence that feels intentional, too complete, too perfect, like the city is waiting for footsteps, waiting for voices, waiting for something that will never return. Photographs show broken windows, empty streets, nature taking over, but they don't fully capture it. They don't show the suddenness. A city of thousands, gone in a single day. No goodbyes, no closure, just absence. Pripyat is not just a ghost city. It is a moment frozen in time, a reminder of how fast everything can change, how something invisible can erase an entire way of life, and how a place can go from full of life to completely silent in less than a day. Aokigahara Forest. At the base of Mount Fuji, there is a forest, dense, silent, dark in a way that feels different from ordinary nature. Aokigahara Forest. From the outside, it looks beautiful. Tall trees, a thick green canopy, soft wind moving through the branches. A place that seems calm, almost inviting, but the deeper you go, the more that feeling changes. The light begins to fade, not because the sun disappears, but because the trees grow so tightly together that sunlight struggles to reach the ground. Shadows stretch in every direction. And then, the silence begins. Not a peaceful silence. Not the kind you find in a quiet park. This is different, heavier. A silence that feels like it's pressing in from every side. Even your own footsteps sound out of place. The forest floor doesn't help. It's uneven, rough, formed by hardened lava from ancient eruptions of Mount Fuji. Roots twist across the ground like natural traps. Every step requires attention, and as you walk, something else happens. Landmarks begin to disappear, not literally, but mentally. One tree looks like another. One path feels the same as the last. There are no clear markers, no obvious direction. It becomes surprisingly easy to lose your sense of where you came from. Even experienced hikers have reported becoming disoriented here, turning around only to feel like they've walked deeper instead of back. Compasses sometimes behave strangely due to the magnetic properties of the volcanic soil. Phones lose signal, and suddenly you're alone in a place that feels endless. But geography is only part of the story. What makes Aokigahara widely known is something far more complex: its reputation. Over many years, this forest has become associated with tragedy, and because of that, carries a heavy emotional weight. Before people even step inside, they already know its name, they already know its stories, and that knowledge changes how the forest feels. Some say the forest feels like it absorbs sound. Voices don't carry the same way. Conversations feel quieter, even when you don't intend them to be. Others say it's not the forest itself, but the mind reacting to it. The density, the silence, the isolation, all combining to create a sense of pressure. And then, there are the things people find. Objects left behind, personal items, ribbons tied to trees, used by some visitors to mark their path. Strings stretching between branches, leading somewhere or leading nowhere. Paths that appear clear and then suddenly vanish, as if the forest rearranges itself without moving at all. Search teams, who have entered for rescue missions, often speak about how difficult navigation becomes, even with maps, even with training, because everything begins to look the same, tree after tree, direction after direction, no clear reference point, no sense of progress. But what truly defines Aokigahara is not what you see, it's what you don't hear. In many forests, there is always sound. Birds, animals, insects. In Aokigahara, those sounds can feel absent, not completely gone, but reduced, distant, uncertain, leaving behind a silence that feels almost unnatural for a living ecosystem. Just wind moving slowly through the trees, and sometimes nothing at all. Over time, this forest became part of cultural discussion in Japan, not simply as a place of nature, but as a place of reflection. At the entrances, you'll find signs, simple, direct, but powerful, messages encouraging visitors to reconsider entering alone, to think carefully, to remember their families, because Aokigahara is not dangerous. In a typical way, there are no predators waiting, no extreme weather trapping you. This danger is quieter, psychological. It affects perception. It alters how space feels, how time feels, how thoughts feel. Some people walk in and walk out, seeing nothing unusual, just trees, just nature, a quiet hike. Others leave, feeling different, disoriented, as if something shifted internally, like their sense of direction, or even their mood, was slightly changed. And that contrast is what makes Aokigahara so difficult to define. It is not one experience. It is many. A place where two people can walk the same path and leave with completely different stories. One sees beauty, the other feels something heavier, something harder to explain. Even today, Aokigahara remains one of the most talked about forests in the world. Not because of what is clearly visible, but because of what people say they feel when they step inside and when they try to find their way back out. And that brings us to the end of our journey through the 12 most haunted places in the world. From abandoned cities frozen in time to forests where silence feels alive, each of these locations holds stories that refuse to fade. Whether you believe in the paranormal or not, one thing is certain. Some places carry an energy you can't ignore. So tell me, which of these haunted places disturbed you the most? Comment below, I read every single one. If you enjoyed this video and want more dark, mysterious, and mind-blowing stories from around the world, make sure to hit like and subscribe, because the next story might be even more unsettling. Until then, stay curious,